Today we've got the new kid on the block, which is Maurten Gel 160. In this video, I'm going to cover how it's different to their previous gels, possible use cases for it, current evidence about hydrogels, how much it costs, and compare it to its competitors. And if you're new here, then hey, my name's James and I'm a sports nutritionist, and I love reviewing different products and giving you the details. As usual with these reviews, I'm not sponsored or affiliated with Maurten in any way. So let's start by talking about what these gels even are. What is a hydrogel and why is there so much hype about them? Now, a traditional gel is something that's somewhere between a liquid and a solid, and it's probably the most common and most recognized way of providing carbohydrates during sport. So brands like Science in Sport, Precision Fuel and Hydration, Never Second, OTE, to name a few, all have gels like this, and they're very good at what they do, which is providing an easily absorbable form of carbohydrates. Maurten's gel is a bit different though, and they've shaken things up. They use a hydrogel format, which isn't new by the way, but they encapsulate carbohydrates and sodium in it. The aim is that the carbs and sodium are protected and delivered more efficiently to the gut, which is where they're then absorbed. Think of it a bit like a protection system for them, and you're on the right track. Now, Maurten suggests that this hydrogel format can decrease the risk of gastrointestinal upset during exercise, and we'll explore this as well as whether there's any benefit on performance later on in the video. If you're wondering what the difference is between their gels and the drink mixes, by the way, it's that the gels are already in the hydrogel format, but the drink mixes turn into it in your stomach once you've consumed them. Now let's move on to talking about how the Gel 160 is different to their previous gel, their Gel 100. The perfect way to explain this difference is to use Maurten's own branding, and that's more or less, it's the same. Now I've got to give credit to Maurten here because I love the simplicity of this and what it represents. The only thing that's different between the Gel 160 and the Gel 100 is the amount of carbohydrates that it contains. The Gel 160 contains 40 grams of carbohydrates and the Gel 100 contains 25 grams of carbohydrates, and they both have the same glucose to fructose ratio. So yeah, that's it. Now you might think that that's not really a big deal, and to be fair, it kind of isn't. They've not come out with something that's completely different or groundbreaking, they've just come out with a bigger version of their gel. However, this is actually really significant in my opinion, and that's for two main reasons. Firstly, it's a testament to their original product, and secondly, it's useful for those who have a higher carb requirement. The fact that they didn't feel that they needed to change anything speaks volumes about how successful they found it and their athletes who use it. So in itself, I think this is a big statement and shows their belief in their product. Now, one of my problems with the Gel 100 is that 25 grams of carbs is a low amount of carbohydrates. For some cases, this might be appropriate, and it's great to have flexibility, but generally speaking, in terms of how many carbs per hour an athlete can consume, 25 grams is tiny. It's not uncommon in endurance sports like triathlon to see carb consumption rates over 100 grams per hour, but taking 4 or 5 gels for that isn't really realistic, so the Gel 160 changes that. This is probably a nice time to more specifically talk about use cases for the Gel 160 and how I could see it fitting into a nutrition plan. As I mentioned, carb intakes for endurance events are increasing and we're pushing the boundaries, and this is something that I work on with the athletes that I coach as well. For a 70.3 triathlon or longer, it's easily possible for a lot of athletes to reach at least 80 grams of carbohydrates per hour. So when you think about how many Gel 100 you might need versus Gel 160s to hit your carbohydrate goal, it should be clear that these new gels make it much easier to do that. You need to consume less gels to hit your goal, which means you'll spend less time faffing around opening the gels and that sort of thing. But it's also more realistic from a logistical point of view, and this goes for triathlon as well as for something like a marathon. You can only store so many things on your bike or on your race belt, so having less items clearly makes this easier. For example, if you were targeting a 4-hour marathon and going for 50 grams of carbohydrates per hour, you would need 8 Gel 100s versus 5 Gel 160s, and I know which I would prefer. As you might expect, they are a bit bigger than the Gel 100s, and you can see the difference between the two. On a personal note, I've tried these for swimming, cycling and running, and I've got on fine with them perfectly, so no issues at all. I do actually really like them because they're neutral in taste and easy to consume, and they just work well. I haven't used the Gel 160 specifically for racing because it's a new product, but I have used the rest of the Maurten product line for racing, and again, no issues. For balance, I have also used other sports products like those from Science and Sport or OTE during races, and I've had super races with those too. So as a summary of use cases of the Gel 160, they don't add anything new as such, but they add far more flexibility to your plan and make it easier to hit your carb goals. Same goes for your training too, but we'll talk about that a little bit later when we cover the cost of them. Now, some of you will be completely new to Maurten, and some of you will be long-term fans. As you might know, I like data and I like facts, so I thought it would be worth summarising the current evidence we've got on hydrogels and sports performance, so that you can make an informed decision about whether they're right for you. Back in 2020, there was a review on hydrogel use within sport, and it found that there was no significant difference between hydrogels and traditional formats of carbohydrate delivery in terms of performance or gastrointestinal upset. However, more recently there was a study by Joshua Rowe and colleagues which specifically focused on runners. His team identified that many studies use cycling as a modality, and they wanted to investigate the effect that hydrogels could have on gastrointestinal upset in runners because they're more prone to nutrition problems. These data from the study do suggest that hydrogels can reduce the risk compared to a standard carbohydrate solution, which might be important if you're a triathlete or a runner. The hydrogels also increased exogenous carbohydrate rates compared to the standard carbohydrate solution. However, whilst it's fair to say there is some evidence which suggests that hydrogels do reduce the risk of gastrointestinal upset and increase performance, there's not an overwhelming amount of evidence for this. Hopefully we will get some more in the future as more studies investigate it, because it's an awesome area of research that can have some significant potential benefits for athletes. Whilst hydrogels and Maurten products definitely do an excellent job at providing carbohydrates, it's fair to say that others do as well. This study specifically looked at Science in Sport's beta fuel products and showed high rates of carbohydrate oxidation at 120 grams of carbs per hour. This was, as you might have guessed, in cyclists, but it's just fair to say that Maurten aren't the only player in the game. Another potential benefit of the hydrogel structure is that the carbohydrates are encapsulated in it, which should mean that there's minimal interaction with your teeth. It is a completely different experience when you consume it compared to a traditional gloopy gel when you still get the remnants in your mouth afterwards. Now, I'm not a dentist and I don't feel comfortable saying this as a definite, but personally when I use Maurten's gels, I pretty much swallow them as just like a big lump of jelly, so I can imagine this being better for my teeth. This is actually somewhat supported by some research which suggests that hydrogel tech is better for dental health compared to regular sports drinks. This study was undertaken by one of Maurten's employees, but I think it's worth highlighting, and Maurten do actually mention this on their website as well. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a rundown on all of the current evidence that's available for hydrogel use within sport. With all of that in mind, let's have a look at the cost compared to some of the current competitors out there. The only gels that I know of that contain around 40 grams of carbohydrates are Science in Sport's Beta Fuel Gel, OTE's Super Gel, and MON's Gel 40. I've tried and separately reviewed the Beta Fuel Gels and OTE's Super Gels, and I am a big fan of them, and I've put links in the description of this video to those reviews for you. I haven't tried the MON gels though. You can see the cost difference between them all, and there's really quite a significant difference, with the Maurten gels being quite a lot pricier than the others. Hopefully what we've been through will give you enough information to make the decision whether they're right for you. Personally, I'd be considering taste, texture, how frequently I expect to use them, whether I already get on with other gels and actually whether it's worth swapping if that's the case, and whether I thought there was enough research for me to prioritize hydrogel formats above others. I'd love to know your thoughts on this, so let me know in the comments. And with that, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I've put another couple up on the screen for you to watch.